here today. How you doing, Blanchard?
Pretty good, thank you, sir.
Called you Blanchard.
That's okay. Well, everybody calls me Blanche, so
Blanche.
Yeah.
I uncovered your nickname.
That's the nickname, yeah.
Sure. So you are the owner of the Prince Edward Island Sea Salt Company.
Yep.
And the founder of the Islanders for Islanders Foundation.
That's pretty much being run by Melissa Farrar. I, was a part of the talks, but wanted to be sort of arm's length from that because I have Salts of the Earth, which is a sister company, the Prince Edward Island Sea Salt Company, and that's my operation. I'm gonna, basically drive the business and have her and her group deal with the funds specifically around mental health.
Right. Awesome, man. So we're at your home slash facility. You just gave us a great tour of the place, and you're doing a lot of things, a lot of great things.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll get into that, but maybe we could start with your story and just pick it up wherever you'd like. And
yeah, for sure. Well, I guess the way that 15 years ago, I went through a pretty interesting life experience. We'll sort of call it that. And it sort of made me quite aware of my mental health. At that time, it wasn't a good thing. But over the years, it's been a great thing. The early years I was diagnosed with PTSD. I denied that diagnosis and went through hell, sort of bounced out of the PTSD state, but then went through 9 years of depression and gained weight. I was an emotional eater, so literally went from a pretty static 220 my whole life, and then, slowly started to get up to 240. Then when my father passed away, I was around 255 when he passed away, and then I shot up to 280, 290. I really don't know what the end weight was. Was running CEO of a fairly successful startup here in Canada, raising a couple $1 million for it. It was worth a lot of money on paper. And then it came to a crashing halt. And that was in a time after my father had passed away, where I didn't really have anybody that I was really talking to. I didn't have that outlet. And my father was definitely, my father, but he also became a very good friend, a mentor, and an ear. After that company, Nimtech, had gone south, I went through a divorce. And it wasn't until a couple months after that split that I was sitting and talking to my old dog, Taz, eating a few pieces of pizza and a Barks root beer. And I just looked at myself and I said, what am I doing? Mm-hmm. And that's when I basically got on the road. And I, literally for about 10 years prior to that moment, I'd been always working on myself, but never to the extent where I really realized, okay, if I don't grab a hold of my mental health and put in some practices and, look at my physical health, things can get away on me. Mm-hmm. And then a short period of time after that, a friend and associate, Anna Howard, took her life. And when that happened, it triggered me back to my PTSD state. And I was having the night terrors and just was, just not myself at all. And that caused me to become very open about my mental health. And I realized that, okay, I got to do something about this. And I started working on myself very aggressively. And, because I was open with my mental health, I was talking to a few people here and there and hearing stories and just realized that there were a lot of gaps in the system. Mm-hmm. After Anna had taken her life, I sort of put this, so I guess to back up, I met Anna because we were going to be working on a project. That's how I started Salts of the Earth. Salts of the Earth was actually created to fund Random Acts of Kindness, PEI, which is created by Anna Howard, and she would go around and help people that were, having issues, meaning, mental health related or financial. Like, she was just doing a whole bunch of great things in the community. So my goal was to try and raise funds through the sale of our salts and give her the revenue needed to help these people locally. So when she did take her life and I started to do a deep dive into my own mental health, I started to talk to a lot of other people in the community. And it made me realize that there were a lot of people that were going through the same sort of situation. Right. And that meaning I was speaking to a young lady who was a waitress at a restaurant I frequented, and she always says, why do you buy somebody's breakfast at the bar? And I said, well, I'm paying it forward. And that was my random acts of kindness that I would do on a few times a week. And I told her about Anna's story. And in our dialogue about mental health, she told me at that time that 2 weeks prior, a friend in her community was 23 years old, had a child, was postpartum depression, going through postpartum depression, went to the hospital, and they deemed that everything was fine, and she was sent home, and she took her life that next morning. And that affected me greatly. It really, really put, for me, put a little accent on, well, what am I doing? What's my purpose? What's my path? And when I bought the Prince Edward Island Sea Salt Company, I bought that or invested into that company specifically to get away from the corporate world. I'm someone who, I believe in truth. I believe in your truth. I believe in community. And for myself, a lot of those things, I couldn't find in the community I lived in.
Yeah.
So, here we are today, where I've bought this property specifically to, run a salt company, that turned into a bit of an Airbnb situation that now is turning into where the whole property is a healing property. Mm-hmm. And we're, I'm literally all in. All the ideas that I've had over the years, everything that I was eventually looking to build, once I exited a company or sold off a company, to get into that more holistic type of healing, I'm just doing it organically. I'm fortunate enough, I have 3 acres here in Milton, and the property itself has the ability to, house about 20 people once we're done the renovation. So we're looking at doing some interesting and unique things. Mm-hmm. Those will roll out over time, but the goal is to build a community, and that's being done through Islanders Helping Islanders, which Melissa Farrar is quarterbacking, which is a foundation that myself and the companies that I currently manage are generating revenue and ideas and projects. Basically 40% of whatever we generate through a plethora of ideas that we're bringing to the table will go back to Islanders Helping Islanders and programming, and hopefully into not just programming, but actual therapy for people in the community and the island community at large.
Right. And I want to get more into that and what you're doing now, but maybe just like going back to your own experience, like, so originally you were diagnosed with PTSD. Did you have to go to like a psychiatrist at the time?
No, the diagnosis was, and what I mean by the diagnosis was from my family doctor. My family doctor, his brother is a military veteran. Okay. And so my doctor was fairly acute in the symptoms and everything like that. So when he did, like, I'd gone to see him a couple of times based on the situation that took place, and I just didn't even bother looking into it further. I just let it go and went through the symptoms, and come to realize that when Anna took her life, and it brought me back to literally a 2.5 year period, it made me realize, that there's no denying that I had it, because the experience that I went through when I found out that Anna took her life, and for a 2-week period until I really, put the focused effort in and started to implement a lot of the things that I had been doing over the 10 years prior, made me realize that it's amazing how you can be at a certain place in your life and you think that you're doing pretty good, and then an event happens that changes things in a fairly aggressive way. Yes. And when that moment took me right back to another period of time, mm-hmm. It scared the hell out of me.
Right back to square one.
Yeah, right back to square one. Now, I was very fortunate that I had a pretty good foundation underneath that. But it was a pretty scary point in my life and that's, again, I wouldn't change it, because that's what has given me, the focus to get to where I am now. And, I feel pretty confident that, whatever life throws at me, it's the 3-second rule: take a deep breath, sit back. I have people in my life that I call and I run through the scenario with to make sure that, I've got some pretty good sound judgment around certain things, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
What were the biggest symptoms for you?
Well, the biggest thing is I was like my sleep. Like first of all, I was going. I didn't feel. I felt scattered, sketchy all day. I couldn't. I was anxious. There was so much anxiety. But the biggest thing was at night I would literally sweat where I thought I urinated the bed. Like I'd wake up and there was literally a silhouette of my body in the bed, and that and then I wouldn't remember too much of the like I wasn't dreaming at all. You know what I mean? But yeah, the biggest thing is that I was almost, I felt like I was looking at myself through another set of eyes.
Mm-hmm.
That the initial trigger, the initial point when I found out that my daughter, well, the situation had taken place, it just felt like everything was on a tilt.
Mm-hmm.
I could never calm myself. I could never find that place of just sort of comfort.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of at the end of the day when you sit down and you take a deep breath, I could never do that. My mind was racing
all the time.
Mm-hmm. Like I have a racy mind to begin with.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that it's amazing that the power of your mind, because I was able to go from that, and like I said, a series of events took place after, which just sort of eased the anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where then it was just depression, where the angst and the fear, you know what I mean? Like one thing that I learned in that situation is that it was more fear based than depression. Depression was definitely a part of it, but the fear of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
There was and I couldn't explain. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like it was very, very.
It's almost like a hopelessness from the fear of the unknown.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing again. For myself right now, like fuck, look at the world we're living in, man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's kind of weird, but I don't think if I went through what I went through 15 years ago for that 2.5 years, and what I went through 4 years ago for that 2 weeks,
mm-hmm.
I don't think I'd be rocking like this is
doing it in the same perspective.
Yeah. Like when I used to go out all the time. Like when I lived in Toronto, I was from the age of basically 16 to 20 to 34. I went out all the time. You know what I mean? So I didn't have social anxiety, but I drank a lot. So then all of a sudden when I started to assess, you know what I mean? Well, why was I drinking? Well, just because it was part of the social engagement. Especially when you went to Toronto, everybody's having a drink, right?
Yeah.
Where, I moved here and I don't drink at all. You know what I mean? But yet I still can socialize. When I go back home, I go back to Ontario quite a bit. Alcohol's not a part of that at all. And it came down to the fact that when I started to assess back then what was going on in my life, the last thing I wanted to do is add alcohol to my toxic mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was so scared of my state that I figured that if I did drink, there might be a point, Yeah. So I literally alleviated. Now, I smoked cannabis like crazy, but I've been smoking cannabis since 16. I have ADHD, and cannabis has sort of been I diagnosed myself, I guess, at 16 myself, because I knew that this helped me quite a bit, right? Like now I don't smoke even close to what I used to, but I'm a proponent for cannabis. I believe it does a lot of help for a lot of people and sort of gets people into a better state rather than using pharmaceuticals. But yeah, so, when getting that second trigger that's 4 years ago, I think that's given me the foundation, because I put a lot of time and a lot of work, and I'm quite fine with being by myself. You know what I mean? I'm quite fine with, well, not fine with the situation and circumstances that we're currently living in, but I'm able to accept it. I mean, like the unknown, like we just went through 5 days or 4 days with the US election being the way it is. I'm not even following it. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying, because there's nothing I can do about it anyway. So it doesn't matter who gets elected. I still got to focus on what I got to focus on. Right?
Exactly.
And but I've looked at things in a much different way than I used to before.
Right.
You know what I mean?
What was the biggest things like the work that you did over the 10 years, and what are the biggest things that helped you?
Well, I think putting me first. When I lived in Toronto and I was building businesses, and even when I was trying to build Nimtech, the last company that went bankrupt in 2014, I was building companies, and that was the priority. Not me and my health, not my relationship. You know what I mean? Like the priority was that business.
Yeah.
And then a big thing for me is when that company went bankrupt in 2014, and I went through a divorce, a few months later, it made me realize, wow, that the compromise I put in my life for that. You know what I mean? Now we need money. We live in a capitalist world. We live in a consumer-driven community, but I don't care about that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I do. Why? Because I need that to help other people. So I'm still going to build and drive and create businesses. But instead of my salt company being a wholesaler and I wholesale it to a whole bunch of stores, I'm going to be a wholesaler and retail it myself and give the 40% back to the community I live in. I live in a property. I'm a single man. I have literally, when that garage is done, I'll have close to 5,000 square feet of livable space, not including my shop and my garage.
Yeah.
Why do I need that? Well, I'm looking to hopefully find other individuals that have gone through things that, have brought them to the point that they realize that, you know what, life is about maybe helping your brothers and sisters. Whether that's a younger man that's on the street and you just buy him a sandwich, or, you meet somebody, you have conversation, and you can give them a place to live where they're going to leverage their, sweat equity, meaning they can use their hands, or they have an idea that we can bring to fruition based on a little bit of investment, but it's more about time. I'm willing to take the chance. I'm willing to give someone the opportunity to prove to themselves that they can do what they want to do, but they need to be given the chance. Mm-hmm. And nowadays, I don't think too many people, get the chance. Why? Because everybody else is so busy. Nobody trusts anybody anymore. Where, I get taken advantage of a lot, but every time I still say I'm still going to believe in humanity, and I'm going to, there's a lot of times where my spidey sense is tingling, and I try not to judge. I'm like, this time will be different. I should have listened to the little voice in my head, but you know what? I don't want to give up on people. I don't want to give up on, so when somebody says something, I try to qualify, I try to, put it through and vet it. But I also, want someone to follow up on their word and be who they say they're going to be. Right? Mm-hmm. So my point being is that I'm looking to try and help those people that, are not given that opportunity. And I'm hoping that, because I've been given opportunities, and when I was given the opportunity, I seized the moment and, capitalized on it, or at least learned something from it.
Yeah.
So I want to be able to keep that mindset going forward.
Right. Yeah. So kind of leading into what you're doing now, I mean, so you came here and you bought this property. That was the first thing. And you acquired the company.
Yeah.
And maybe you could talk a little bit about just kind of what you're describing, what you'd like to do with some of this space that you have here.
Yeah, so when I initially bought the property, I bought it specifically to make the salt. Now, at the time, the Airbnb world here in Prince Edward Island was pretty amazing. So I went outside my budget and I bought a property that, obviously, is a lot bigger than what I needed. Now, turning this into an Airbnb and giving it, the attention it needed, has really, put, say, an asset together. Like, I got an interesting property now, but Airbnb has gone sideways. Mm-hmm. So what I'm trying to do now is, the goal is hopefully to bring Airbnb back to the table. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't come back, I'm trying to leverage the space to put together events and different other type of situations that will generate revenue. Hopefully give individuals that are working with us the opportunity to, work with us on the project. So I mean, people that are working with us means that the individuals that are part of the community that might not normally be gainfully employed, right? So we're looking all of the boxes of salt that I have, either through Salts of the Earth or PEIC Salt, that has been put together by an individual that's either battling addiction or mental health. Our labels are a little crooked. Why? It's been put on by a human being. The goal is to basically put things into perspective where we have the opportunity to sell a lot of product. That product's been churned back into programming. So that programming, we're looking to build an in-ground greenhouse. Now, why are we putting an in-ground greenhouse? Well, health is a big factor for someone's mental health, physical health, emotional health. So some of the funding that we're looking at as a company, as Salts of the Earth, the money that we're generating, we're looking to put that into practice. We got a chicken coop where we're going to have 9 chickens, hopefully ramping up to 50. The coop can handle that. Why are we doing that? Well, we're looking at, again, the people that are coming to help us put the product together can hopefully help us take care of the chickens, take care of the greenhouses, educating people on how to build their own greenhouse, how to take care of chickens, so that we can also educate and get them to help us moving the vision forward. At the back of the property, I'm looking at putting a yurt. The reason for the yurt is for therapies, so for meditations and yoga sessions and things of the sort. We're looking to have a place where you come into that room, and it's a sacred room for people to be able to be free to speak freely and to have authentic conversations. And that room, you're going to feel that when you walk into it. We're really trying to put a good feel towards it. So that's in the process of being done. We're looking at getting a handmade yurt from, just forgot the name, but it's handmade from a place in South America.
Interesting.
I've got 3 acres here, so we're looking at putting in some gardens and putting in, a lot of anything infrastructure wise where we can put something in, it can be managed, and it possibly can churn into a possible revenue stream. So even the eggs, I'd like to be able to feed people, but if it makes sense, then maybe we'll add more eggs where we can actually be generating revenue or leverage those eggs to barter. Right, so maybe we give 10 dozen eggs and we get a few pounds of beef or whatever. But looking at that type of situation. So the property itself, right now, the goal is to get it where it's 0 footprint, and the infrastructure that's being put in is 100% self-sustainable. So we'll be able to create products here and then feed the resources that are putting the product together. And at the end of the day, hopefully be able to house them. We're in the process of building a couple of shipping container homes. And the goal is, again, to have it where we're hopefully turning it into a business opportunity. But at the same time, we're hoping to be able to house some of the less fortunate individuals in our community that might not have housing. If we're able to house them and they're able to give us time in trade, then their rent is covered, and we can hopefully give someone the opportunity to get to the point where we can gainfully employ them, meaning pay them. And like I said, they'll have housing and good food. So right. I know it was all over the place, but those are a few things that we're doing. Right.
No, those are the big ideas and the main ideas of what's going to happen moving forward. So the business idea, like as far as like the numbers, like 40% is going to go directly back into the Islanders for Islanders.
Yeah. So how that works is, so when I first started the Prince Edward Sea Salt Company, we're a wholesaler. So we make a product and then we would send it out to stores, and they would retail it. And then we would do our market fairs and craft shows, and we did a lot of those over the past 5 years. We're into our 5th year now. So when I started Salts of the Earth was created specifically as a fundraising tool for charity nonprofit organizations, so churches, hockey teams, where we want to sell them 100 of our boxes of salt, which is salts that we procure from around the world. And they're all put together by individuals battling mental health or addiction. Our actual boxes are put together by Stars for Life. And then out of that retail side, the organization would keep 40%. we're the wholesalers, we're putting it together. And then on our side, the goal is that as a company, when we generate revenue, our goal was to take our profits and put it back into sustainability as well. So that being said, when I met Melissa and she was talking about the frustrations she's been dealing with because she's a nurse at the hospital and she works with Blooming House, just in seeing the people on the street and some of the situations. So we had some pretty good conversation. And I said, well, I started this project 4 years ago with Random Acts of Kindness. And I said, it's been on the shelf. So, the investment's already there. The grinders are there, all the products there. We just got to create it and move it forward. So within 24 hours, we decided to do a video and all of a sudden engage in this without any team, without nothing other than the idea of, okay, something has to be done. And in that 3 weeks, there's been a lot of things moving on the background, and we've been selling some of the product, but we haven't really been promoting it as much as we should be, because this is not just about a campaign. This is now we're engaged and we're moving it forward. We're actually creating a foundation, where when it started, we were just creating a campaign, but now we've got some key people that are involved. And like I said, from the business side, I'm looking to create a multi-million-dollar company. Well, if I create a multi-million-dollar company, that's $2 million. If $2 million of gross sales are being pushed out, then that means there's 400,000 or 800,000 in potential gross profit that would be donated back to the foundation. Mm-hmm. Now, like I said, those are rough numbers because obviously expenses have to come out, but the goal is to literally make enough money that we don't have concerns around. The only concerns we're going to have is basically where do we find the resources to be able to fill the gaps necessary that the government is setting aside. Mm-hmm. When we hear that we didn't have any deaths with COVID, but yet they closed down Unit 9 at the hospital and they just reopened it. So 8 months of not having a psychiatric ward on the island.
Already like a waiting list, already short on beds.
Yeah. So, now I'm not going to get into extrapolating the data and the reasons why, but I look at things fairly logically, and there's no logical reason for that. If all of a sudden there was a need for those beds, then pull those people out of those beds and put the COVID patients there. We didn't have one hospitalized individual. So I think it's very, very, saddening that, the government automatically puts aside individuals with mental health issues with the possibility of having an overload to the system. You know what I mean? Like, mm-hmm. I don't understand.
Especially with the suicide deaths.
Well, especially when you're dealing, like, I look at it this way. Like, my problem is that I look at things very logically. And when I look at the numbers, we've had 10,000 deaths due to COVID in Canada, 10,200 and some or whatever as of a couple of days ago. 80% of those deaths were in seniors' homes. Okay? Not that I want elderly people to die in any way, shape, or form, but those are cultures where if a virus gets in there of any sort, people are going to die. Now, the fact that this took out 80% of the seniors in those homes, that's sad, but that means there was only 2,200 deaths outside of that over a 10-month period. 11 months now, or however many months. How many of those people were over the age of 60? How many of those people have pre-existing morbidities? Let's talk about how many people have taken their lives because they've lost their jobs, mm-hmm. because they've been sexually abused by their father more and more because he's not at work anymore. Or what? The amount of collateral, if we put the collateral and compare it to the actual deaths outside of those homes, there's no mathematical equation that can justify the deaths that are, that have already happened and that are coming. I look at the fact that the deaths that are coming are going to be exponential because right now everybody's getting a check. Yeah. Everybody's okay. When those checks change or when interest rates take a spike or when all of a sudden the economy doesn't come back, because it can't come back. I mean, any economist is going to give you the basics there. So when all those things happen, the individuals that have sort of had a life where there hasn't been any real experience, trauma, those are the people that are really going to have a shit show because all of a sudden it's come upon them not because of anything they've done. Yeah. It's something from an outside force that, like again, when that happened to me 15 years ago, I didn't do, something took place and that caused, my veneer to break, put me in a very interesting place. And now when this is going on, not to say that I'm fine with it, but
You've been here before.
This is nothing compared to where I've been.
Yeah.
You know, and it's maybe because I've been there.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
So, like I said, I wouldn't change anything that I've gone through. For the simple fact that it's, you know, anything that's been bad, that's, you know, stretched my brain in places where I didn't ever want to go. After being there and being able to come back, and I came back through, you know, the effort of not giving up on myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And being, you know, just like a pit bull to a steak.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not going to give up. Why? Because, you know, a lot of it has to do with maybe some of the comedians I've listened to in the past. But, you know, when you think about it, life is pretty precious. When you look at the very, very beginning, how many sperm are competing, and you won, and then
you won the race.
You won the race, and you're gonna sit back. You know what I mean? And so whatever, something happened.
Yeah.
You know, like an event that took place.
Yeah.
Now I can't change that event, but I can change the way that I react to that event.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it took me a long time to figure that out.
Yeah.
You know, my father used to say to me all the time, life is 10% what happens and 90% how you react to that 10%. So if that's true, then this is virtual reality. This is reality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If something happens out here, that's okay. How do I stop, process what just happened out here? Because what happened out here, there's a plethora of reasons why that happened. Could be act of God, could be manipulation, could be lies, could be whatever. But to react in that moment in time and to not see that situation could be a blessing, might not be happening at that point in time. It could be 2 minutes from now. You're going to go, oh, wicked. So glad that guy stopped because we would have got hit by that train. Meanwhile, you're pissed off because this guy's car broke down. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You never, like something like the wow. Or it could be 3 months down the road when you realize that the pain of going through what you went through has given you the ability to take that time for yourself or to whatever it is, right?
Like 10 years in your situation, right?
Oh, exactly. You know what I mean? Like when I look at people and the fact that they have a lot of trouble with being by themselves, you know what I mean? I've come to a place where, you know what I mean? It's not that I enjoy being by myself. I'm just very comfortable being by myself. Where before I wasn't. That's why I went out all the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And now it's like, you know, it's I enjoy my me time quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I felt the same way. Just with this whole COVID thing, you know, from what I've been through. And I'm sure there's a lot of other people that felt the same way too. It's just you've been to your own personal hell already.
Yeah.
You've already been to hell, so it's like it's not there. I know how to get through it, right? I know what to do.
Well, it's funny because literally 2 years ago I put out a video on my personal social media page and also on my Prince Edward Island Sea Salt page. It was supposed to be a 3-minute video about Christmas and this and that, and I ended up doing it. It was 22 minutes.
Right, yeah.
And I cry in the video. I talk about my mother's death, like, you know.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is the reason why I put that out there, that's me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I thought, I want it to be out there. And then I did another one where I'm checking to see if my beard, I bought a new wireless mic, and I'm checking to see if my beard is on the mic. And then that's a 7-minute video where I'm just talking about my shipping thing. But again, why did I put that out there? Because it's out to the universe and it's me. It's 100% me.
Yeah.
And I want people to get to know me because when I did both those videos, I helped people.
Yeah.
There's no doubt because I got the feedback, and they were all people I knew, people that were in my social, that had the relationship with me and say, holy shit, dude, thank you for doing that. You know what I mean? I always thought you had your shit together, or, you know, you always put on a good face, or I didn't see that other video, and then all of a sudden you hear where these people were, or where they are, or what the hell's going on, and it's like, wow, you know, well, I'm so glad that I did that. So it's not that I'm a believer of like, this is what I tell everybody. I want to hear your story. I want to hear it once. After that, I do not want to hear about it. I don't want to live it. I don't want to hear that something goes back to that. Because that whatever happened to you is a good thing. You just got to figure out why it's a good thing. But if you keep coming back and we keep having that conversation, you just go back to that state and you change your physiology to be in that state. Yeah. I learned that from becoming that identity. You know, I've had 4 knee surgeries due to an old hockey injury, and I mean, my identity was the guy with the cane. You know what I mean? Or like, you know what I mean? You all of a sudden, your identity changes based on some of your physiology or some, you know, oh, that's the guy that had the breakdown or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But you can change that like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just make the decision. I always tell people, look, I want to hear your story. Let's hear what happened, what caused you to be here today, and then who do you want to be 5 years from now? Well, every time you cross the property line, you're that person. I don't know who that person is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why can't you be that person? What's stopping you from being that person?
And I like what you're doing here. And, you know, we talked about potentially giving people the chance to work and start to be productive again and be compensated, whether it's like with food or whatever it is, like just that experience again. Like a lot of people don't get that opportunity.
Yeah, I agree.
And what I've learned in my own experience, and this is a question I ask everybody, and I kind of asked you, like, what was the biggest things that helped you, is the daily practice.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what you're talking about, where it's like, you know, I had a fellow on that he's a life coach, and this is just the only thing he does. He's like, you've already went to a professional, like, we know what's wrong with you, you know what your diagnosis is, we know, you know, we're not going to talk about your story. We're going to talk about what are you doing on a daily basis to make it better, to put it into practice. You know, you can feel better when we sit and talk and we tell your story and get out all your emotions. You need that, but you also need on a daily basis to put it into practice. Like, do I have to go for a walk every morning? Do I have to exercise? Do I have to eat healthy? Do I have to be productive in some way?
Yeah.
Like, what makes me feel better every day?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and that's to me, that's like I said, and I think I'd probably segue like I usually do, but that's what it comes down to, is my most important meeting of the day is me.
Yeah.
And that could come in 3 separate segments.
Yeah.
You know, like for the past 4 years of my life, I've become very, very focused on my health, and I'm weighing in less than what I did in grade 13. You know what I mean? Like but that comes from, you know, making whole meals. You know what I mean? Like I make every meal, so I intermittent fast all day, and then between, you know, 6 and 8 o'clock I eat, but I make my meal. You know, I'm not throwing it in a microwave or, you know, like it's a meal that I'm preparing, right? And to me, when I started doing that, I realized, I love this because it's me time. I have no choice. That's why I love golfing. That's why I like smoking a cigar. When I light a cigar, it's an hour to an hour and a half there. If I'm either with somebody that we're going to have a conversation, or I'm there for, like, I know what I'm doing for the next hour and a half. Yeah. And that's my me time. You know what I mean? Not to say that that's a part of my daily regime, but, you know, meditation, you know, like breathing exercise, you know what I mean? And when something happens, literally taking that breath, you know, 3 seconds before I react. My brain's moving so quick. If somebody's having a bad day and they lash out at me, I could, but I don't. Why? I sit back, whoa, what's gone on with you that you got to react to me that way? Because that's not where I'm coming from. Yeah. You know, so I give them that space to be. And then, you know, when they realize, because I mean, if you just give somebody the space and you just, don't react, they usually come in, unless they're so out of it, you know. But most people become aware of the fact, they shouldn't have reacted that way. Yeah. And instead of me lashing out, now we have a tense moment, or it's
almost like you're meeting them on their level. Instead of doing that, you're just giving them a second, like, okay,
we've all been there.
Like, we've all been there. How
many times have I, you know, been in a situation, like even in a grocery, like, well, come on, you know, whatever. You know, now earbuds, I always have earbuds. So when I'm in a situation where I don't even hear the stupidity that's going on in front of me in a line, I'm listening to Led Zeppelin, the Rolling Stones, and, you know, I'm enjoying that moment instead of being frustrated because there's, you know, they're waiting for a check for the number, you know what I mean? All right, it's irrelevant. What are you going to do? Yeah. You know, you think getting upset in that moment in time is going to change the fact that the guy's still got to come back with a number before we can, but no. So might as well enjoy the moment, or at least flow through it, right? Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, like what you were saying earlier about like dark times, like that made you the person you are today, and like you appreciate the good times, and that puts things into perspective like that, where it's like waiting an extra 5 minutes, even like 2 minutes at the line, like it's all just crumbs, you know, it's nothing, right? And it's like to have a real life experience that really was horrible. You're like, man, if I'm late for whatever, it's something in the world.
Oh, and not only that, this is the way I look at it. Like, if you allow a whole bunch of those little crumbs throughout the day to bother you, like you said, you know, you call them crumbs. Like, well, look at it. If you're allowing, you know what I mean, you're open to allowing those things to happen. Yeah. Like, you know, people are arguing. When I look at people that are in that state, they're waking up with that intention. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, there's something that's going wrong in their day from the time they opened up their eyes.
Yeah.
And they're already in that state, right? Where for me, like I said, like I open my eyes and I go into a practice where I'm grateful.
Mm.
You know, where
gratitude.
Yeah. Where if I open my eyes and I go, shit.
Another day, fuck.
Yeah. So well, now when I go to I'm at the Sobeys in line, and I got to be at an appointment at 10, and you know this lady's getting a call check, and then her kid drops something. Now it's all over so okay, we got 10 minutes. Like I can be a little late. I have the ability to text, say, hey, look, I'm sorry, I'm gonna be a few minutes late. Just whatever, but don't react. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Like take the 3 seconds, take the 2 minutes, take the 10 minutes to assess the situation, make the best possible outcome, move it forward, right?
Yeah. Instead
of reacting and allowing that situation. Now I'm going to take that to my meeting.
Yeah.
So that's how productive is that meeting going to be if I'm in that state, right?
And then also, like you're projecting that into the world too.
Oh, exactly.
Like if you, and we've all been there. Like if you say something to that person, to the cashier, all of a sudden you're projecting that negative energy, and all of a sudden they're having a bad day, and maybe they, you know what I'm saying?
Well, that's the whole thing. That's why when Anna Howard started Random Acts of Kindness, like if you can do one random act of kindness, that could change that person's day to the point where it could change the world.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like the butterfly effect, or however way you want to look at it.
Yeah.
But who knows? I've read enough stories in that world. When I was depressed, when I was PTSD and depressed, I went down wormholes and I watched a lot of videos and I read a lot of articles or excerpts from books, and just a plethora of just stuff. And a lot of it might have been just wasted BS time, but something came of it. Where I've read stories where a young kid in high school was getting bullied one day, and the guy who was on the wrestling team or whatever, the kid dropped his books or whatever, and the guy came over to help him. And they were buddies when they were younger, but as you get older in high school, and when he came over to do that and said, hey man, how you doing? And just helped him with his books, that kid was on his way home to commit suicide.
Yeah.
And when that guy came over and did that, and he didn't even know why he came over to do it, because he said, yeah, like the guy's been picked on, a bit of a loser, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But I wanted to come and help him, but that changed the course. And that kid didn't commit suicide, became the valedictorian of his school. And, so, wow, what a trajectory, all because somebody took the time to just go help a guy whose bag busted open and his books fell on the ground. That random act of kindness, well, what wasn't known was we had a series of events that took place prior to that. And the guy's like, oh my boy, what else could go wrong? My boy, like this kid was on his way home to take his life. And that little event that took place changed the course of time, changed it where that's what this, and then his valedictorian speech, that kid stated that, mentioned that. To me, that's huge. That's powerful as fuck, man.
All the people he inspired because of that, it went viral, obviously, because you got it.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you know what I mean? Like, wow. But isn't that, here we are, where, like I said, like, so instead of me reacting in that line at the Sobeys, when I get to how you doing? Yeah, that was quite a little episode. Laugh, smile.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that poor girl, you're not stressed out about it? What am I going to do? I can only imagine how it is to deal with that 3-year-old throwing stuff all over or whatever.
Yeah.
So my goal is to try and take that and flip it, right? That's what all for smiles, man. That's what it's all about, right? So if I can literally try to put my goal, what do I want out of this? What's my goal out of this? Well, what I realized over the last 15 years, I lost a part of myself, right? I was a funny guy. I went out all the time. I was Blanche. My name's Darren Blanchard. I was Blanche. When, from a young age playing hockey, I was the captain of my hockey team every year. Why? Because I was a leader. And then all of a sudden, like I said, I lost that. And now I'm trying to get it back. So my goal is to get these businesses working. And then I want to be able to have the umbrella company, the company that's going to go out and actually meet all these people, is All for Smiles, which is a character that I've created called Jack Smiles. I created this character like literally 20 years ago. And I've always, the fear, the anxiety of my own intellectual capital, my own idea going out there. It's not somebody else's. I've helped a lot of people build their businesses. I've helped a lot of people do their intellectual property. Now this is mine. And it's just about smiles, but it's the fear of being judged. Well, now I don't care. Why? Because I did that video, 3 years ago. And I'm like, all these things have come to the point where I put all that out there. Why did I put that out? Because I don't care about being judged.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to judge me for being me, well, I'm authentically true to who I am right now, then go ahead. Because and I mean this truly, what's wrong with you that you're going to judge me without really knowing, other than maybe the fascia of me, you know what I mean? Or if you want to get to know me, you want to judge me, sit down, let's have a conversation, get to know me.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody's going to say something derogatory or something negative about me, then, you know, go ahead, believe them. Or put a little asterisk beside it and get to know the person if you have to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because today I try to do that as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what other people are saying. I noted, but I'm going to still give someone that opportunity to prove them wrong or prove me wrong at times, right? But, you know, my goal, so what's in it for me, my goal is to get to the point where I have these businesses running, everything's sustainable, and I'm literally putting smiles on faces. So I want to get to the creative end. I want to get on the marketing side. I want to do all those things that I never did before because I was running businesses, and I want to get to the point where if I can, you know, create that influencer ability where I have 250,000 people that have subscribed to my channel. You know, I have 60,000 people that are watching, you know, the podcast. Why? Because it's authentic. It's true. Like, I'm not looking, this isn't about trying to become popular. This is about making people aware that we got a huge problem on our hands.
Yeah.
And it's mental health.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I want to do it by putting a smile on your face. But at the end of the content that we're creating, I want to give you something to leave with. Which, when you get up in the morning and you brush your teeth and you look in the mirror, have an authentic conversation. Lie to everybody else you want to all day. Don't lie to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I did that. You know, every day I would lie to myself. I lie to myself today.
Everybody does it.
You know what I mean?
Everybody.
But I don't lie to myself even close to what I used to.
Yeah.
That's how I keep my diet the way it is. Like, I get the worst sugar addiction you can ever imagine. I don't eat sugar at all, but I go, you know, there's a day where all of a sudden, you gotta understand, I've been eating sugar since I was 3 months old. You know, this addiction to sugar is so deep where I've cut out a lot of things in my life, but do I beat myself up over it? No. Why? Because I eat really good. But when I have that sugar jam now, and I do break and I go get a shittiest ice cream in the world, but I'll go to Dairy Queen and I get a Blizzard, and I okay, big deal. You know, I still did my workout. I'm still had the good meal.
Yeah.
You know, everything's there, and I can't help it because this addiction, it's a 50-year addiction.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, holy crap. Like, when you think about it, I mean, it's unreal, right?
Yeah.
So, do I beat myself up for it?
No.
You know what I mean? Do I want to eat sugar every day? Christ, no. I know that, you know, that can have dire effects. I could be a diabetic, you know what I mean? All these other factors. So, I'll deal with my, you know, Twitch, and all of a sudden I'm in the lineup at Dairy Queen for that Blizzard, and then, you know, do I curse myself? You know, whatever. Mm-hmm. No big deal, right?
Yeah.
But the point being is that, you know, I've come to a point in my life where I've learned, you know, like you would call, you know, the practices or whatever you want to say, where I know that if I get those things in, that I can accept the fact that at 5 o'clock, if I start to twitch after I'm done my meal, it'll be okay to go for the dairy. I did 5 days, no dairy. You know what I mean? Like, I forgive myself a lot more. Where before, I would beat myself up over something like that, which would cause it to go 3 or 4 days. You know what I mean?
I seen something on the internet recently. It was all about self-compassion, and the number one thing that's like killing just productivity and people's mental health is like self-compassion.
Yeah.
Not having, and it's just like having a fraction of the compassion for yourself that you would for someone else.
Oh my God. Well, what do we always say? We can always give advice. We don't take it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I look at it this way. Like, I don't know. I've been told a lot about myself from people that know me. Do you know what I mean? Like, based on, so I was told a few years ago that I should consider whether or not I'm an empath. Okay, so I did some research and I realized, holy shit, I believe that I'm an empath, right? Where if I read a story about a child that, you know, was treated poorly, that affects me. You know what I mean? When I hear somebody else's story, that's why I say I only want to hear it once, because I want to hear that. That's a connection for us. But I don't want to talk about it again. Because every time you talk about it, I come back there with you because you're telling me about an emotional point in your life where the shit hit the fan. I can't deal with that very well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the kind of work that I'm in, you know, in helping people, I want to stay focused on my skill set, which is driving the business, generating the revenue to put to the foundation that I can still be a part of where that money goes and how it's going to help people. But I can't I could never be a doctor. I could never be a therapist. You know what I mean? I'd do one session a day with a therapist. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't help anybody else. But becoming aware of that has been very powerful for me, because I know that, you know what, if somebody's contacting me and they're in trouble, depending on what you know what, dude, I don't have the bandwidth today to be able to talk to you, and I don't mean to not be there for you, but I can't do it, because my mental health is way more important. And what I've come to realize is that as I try to build this, if I was to do that every time that a friend contacted me, and I tell people, look, I have no problem listening, but you know, I've come to realize that I become emotionally attached to your story, and I can't talk about this on an ongoing basis. I'm being real with them because I have to be concerned about me, right? If the only way that it can be of service to you or anybody is to make sure that I'm running an optimum state myself, right?
Yeah.
So if all of a sudden I start to degrade because I'm taking on too much,
you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So even if I try to maintain a half full cup, why? Yeah. Because if that person's depending on me, okay, I got to be there. Right. But also everybody in my life, especially everybody that's involved in this project, they all know I don't want to talk about it. You know what I mean? Like, you know, if you're going to start to bitch, like, and if I start to bitch, I tell you, I don't want to, like, stop me.
Yeah.
Right. Because all of a sudden you get to the point where habits are like, you know, I'm at a point where I've got some old habits. So all of a sudden, ding, 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 3-4 negative things in a row. All of a sudden you come through the door. You know, if you go, hey, take a breather, man, go for a walk, or you give me, you know what I mean? The 3 things that I've told you that's what I do, or whatever, you know what I mean? Yeah. We have that everybody hears in that, then, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry, right? Because maybe you're coming in at an 11, and you open the door, hey, Darren, how's it going? Fuck, you know, I'm like, oh, dude, you went from 11 to 7 to maybe 3 to maybe -4. Why? Because of what happened to me, right? Now, that's okay based on a certain situation or certain, you know what I mean? But that's not fair to you to come into that situation. But we do that, and it happens to everybody all the time. But I think we got to be conscious of that. That's why I say, when you're coming across that property line, because of the people that are here, you got to be a good apple. We're all bruised, don't get me wrong. But the point is you got to have the mindset and the personality to be able to, suck it up a bit. If you need that conversation, then figure out a way that you're going to be able to make it happen without affecting the team as a whole, right? Mm-hmm. And that's me. Why? Because I know how I've been affected when I've been all of a sudden conscious and aware of my day, putting in my practice. So I know that by 10 o'clock every day, I'm a 10. Like, you know what I mean? Or I'm an 8. Or if I'm a 5, then I'm going to be aware of that, and I'm going to sit back in the pocket. I'm not going to maybe get involved in conversation. Why? Because everybody knows I'm always here. When I'm not here, people are, you okay, man? You know what I mean? Everybody, well, Darren's vibrating all the time, right? Yeah. Well, when I'm down, okay, well, there's something. No, it's all good. I'm good. You know, I'm just working through something or whatever, but I'm not bringing that on them. You know what I mean? Because we're all about energy. Energy is huge, right? Yeah. Yeah. And for me, I'm very good at bringing the energy up, but I can also be very just as effective in bringing it down depending on a situation or circumstance. So, you know, all that being said, I'm very grateful for the experience that I've gone through to be aware of who I am, what I'm about. And when I get up in the morning and I look in the mirror, you know, I don't lie to myself anymore. Because if I lie to myself, then the point is that I'm going to continue to degrade or to continue to allow certain things to happen in my life where it's going to affect other people, you know, in a negative way.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Just like the self-awareness, like you're an empath. People, like so many people in the world that don't know that. That don't know if they are or they. And
you know what? I think that, like, I call it foo-foo stuff. Like, I come from a hard rock mining town. You know what I mean? Like, there's just this underlying, you know, everybody's tough, everybody can deal, you know what I mean? But the reality is, I think that if there's nothing, you keep your chin up, you know, do all those things, but the reality is, if you're aware of the fact that, you know, certain things affect you a different way, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, even if you feel like you're the only one in the world that looks at things a certain way, okay, that's fine, but just be aware of it. Be aware of it, and how can you maybe avoid having those situations affect you the way they do? How do they trigger you the way? How can you, you know, when that happens, can you literally just take a deep breath, count to 10, and that gives you just that amount of time to redirect how that happened. You know what I mean? Like, however way you want to fake, fool yourself or just eliminate the fact that that trigger is going to take you down that path, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what happens a lot of those situations are learned in our childhood and in our youth, right? Either through a teacher or a brother or a mother or father, where as soon as something happens, they react a certain way that triggers you. Then you don't realize, but as soon as you get out of that relationship, you're reacting that way at work, or you're reacting that way at school or university or with your partner, right? And you're wondering why am I closed off? Why is that happening? Well, you got to sit back, do the work, and oh yeah, shit, my dad used to do that.
Yeah.
So as soon as she does it, shit, I react a certain way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with coming to terms with the fact that, oh wow, maybe that wasn't such a good thing, or whatever that was back then, right? Parents, hey man, it's not easy, right? We're all victims of our past, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And those individuals that created those situations for us, they didn't want to do that, even though it might have looked like it was intentional. I don't think anybody truly wants to hurt another human being intentionally. I believe that the situations and circumstances that came to them have given us the ability to learn from their action. You know what I mean? Like, whatever happened in my past that, have brought me to the dark places in my mind, I'm very grateful for. You know what I mean? Like, because it's given me the ability to look at the complete opposite in another way. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly, yeah.
The yin and yang of it. If you really look at everything negative that happens to you will have a positive outcome.
Yes.
It only depends on how you truly look at it.
Yeah.
So when I look at, my doctor, like I said, saying to me, no, Darren, you have PTSD. There's no, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm like, what? And literally left there, flip him the birds. He'd give me a stack of pills, which I, threw on the counter and walked out, and then decided to move here, get into a custody battle, and the rest is history. But I did that in the worst possible mindset, in denial of a diagnosis. Now, it was my practitioner who diagnosed me. His brother was 2 tours in Vietnam. I mean, I had no reason to not believe his diagnosis. But I didn't come to terms with that until literally 10 years later, when a friend took her life and I triggered again,
mm-hmm.
right? And it brought me to a place where I'm like, oh, wow. And it happened so quick, and it was so where if this happens, something else happens where I trigger, like, who knows where I could go or what, and I was doing pretty good then too, like I was on a path, I was losing weight, I was, I'd come back from a life coaching course myself.
Mm-hmm.
Where I was focused on, I'm not looking at building companies where I'm a team player. I'm the coach. I'm not the boss. I'm going to play games with my title. My title for the salt company is SEA, CEO. Meaning, but I'm not a CEO. I'm going to make decisions. I'm going to make decisions with my team, but my goal is to be a team player, and I want the people that are a part of this team to get exactly what they're looking for out of the company as well, right? Like, we have an entity that is you want to move from putting the grinders together to get into sales. Well, you got to learn how to do these things, but we're willing for people to have that opportunity, right? Give people at least give people the hope that they can get there if they're willing to put the time and energy to get there, right?
Right. What are the gaps you're hoping to fill with Islanders for Islanders?
Well, and that's the interesting thing right now with Melissa and a few of the other people that are coming together. The biggest thing is that we want to be able to show right off the bat that the money that we're putting in to play is having a direct effect, but it's sustainable. So my brain works in a very logical pattern. So, like, as I was saying, when I look at certain things that don't make sense, drives me crazy. So I want to be able to look at it the goal is initially to raise $30,000. The goal is, with that $30,000, if we can leverage that with provincial or federal funding and turn that into $120,000 or $90,000 or whatever, the goal is to make sure that once that's done, that there's backfill of money coming, right, to whatever we put into play. So if that means that we maybe buy a secondary van, there's 2 of these mobile units, Well, okay, we bought a van. Now we got to put insurance on it. We got to put gas in it. There has to be a certain therapist that's in it. So those things are constant costs. Well, hopefully, the energy, the machine, which is the company, is generating revenue to be able to maintain that initial asset that we bought, which is going to be depleting in value, right? It's a van. It's going to need maintenance and stuff like that. Be able to keep it going, right? No excuses. Well, the van's off because we didn't have the money. No, we're building a successful business that has the narrative of, hey, do you need salt? Because every house has salt in it. So buy one of these boxes of salt or one of our salt products or a t-shirt or a hat. Buy something off us once a year where you can feel like you contributed to whatever's going on. But if I can sell 1 million units of anything, 1 million units, that's what I want to do. Every year I want to sell 1 million of whatever. Across Canada, people are going to want a t-shirt, a toque, or a hat, or salt, or beard oil. Like I'm talking to other Atlantic Canadian companies that are producing good organic quality products that I, as Jack Smiles, would use, that he'd want other people to use. And if we can wholesale that, make that 40% and turn that back in. Well, if I sell 1,000 bottles of this beard oil that I use, it's a Fredericton company, and they work with people with veterans that have PTSD. Why wouldn't I buy that over the competitor? Is it more expensive? Yeah. But what do they, he's a veteran with PTSD. So you know what I mean? Much like this company here, I'm the CEO, but I'm also the guy that 12, 15 years ago was pretty messed up. You know what I mean? And life throws you left or right, but I'm putting together this company because what if 10 years from now the wheels come off me? Maybe what I've put into place is actually going to be benefiting me down the road. You know what I mean? Like, so I put an infrastructure in place and planted a seed, and I planted the seed, but I'm going to have maybe 15 people that are going to help me take care of this seed. Well, that seed is now grown into a beanstalk. Right, and it continues to grow, meaning that it's providing value, meaning the property is generating revenue, it's generating food, it's generating intellectual capital, meaning new ideas that we'll continue to reinvest in. So, like I sit back and 4 years ago when my friend took her life, and there was this How Many More Wade that had over 5,000 people on it to protest the government for the lack of funding. Government's going to do whatever the fuck government wants to do. There's nothing that's going to stop them from doing what they want to do, no matter how much we protest.
Exactly, yeah.
But if I can leverage my intellectual capital, meaning the skills that I've attained over the years of being an entrepreneur, and I've put the initial investment in, and now I can bring other intellectual capital in of people that also believe in the fact that the system is fucked.
Mm-hmm.
But you have 3 hours a week to donate to maybe help push our social media campaign into a specific geographical area where you partner with all the chefs in that specific geographical area. Those individuals now buy it and they put it on their channel, but those people now are looking at buying salt for this recipe. They're buying our salt. The point being is that if we can leverage anybody out there that believes in what it is we're doing, people want to question it. Come look at the books. Come look at anything. You know what I mean? Like if anything, people are going to say, well, wow, that's, you ran successful businesses. This seems pretty asinine what you're doing. Well, no, because I'm building it regardless. I'm building it. The infrastructure is going to be put into place. The goal is that once the infrastructure is put into place, I'll be paid back that investment. That's what the company's going to do. My goal is to have it bought out by the foundation. So the foundation is running it. So there's no questions by the people. I find that in today's day and world, there's so many scams. This morning, I got to call my social insurance number, the scam that was on Compass there the past couple of nights or whatever. My social insurance number has been, this is the RCMP, my social insurance number has been taken, blah, 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 There's so many scams, right? What I'm trying to do is say, hey, look, there's no scams here. This is 100% about the authenticity of people coming together to help other people. And we have a product that's in every table in Canada. Whether you use it or not, you have it there for your guests. Buy some of this salt. Why? Because when you buy the salt, this is what's going to happen. The infrastructure that we're putting in is just this basic infrastructure. The amount of programming and the other things that we're looking at doing down the road, and this is all high level. Obviously, we want to get some metadata from the community itself. We want to get feedback and what's needed. Like I look at it this way: if Unit 9 can be shut down for literally 8 months, does that mean there was no need for it? Or does that mean that we just didn't give a shit as far as government was concerned? Between the Ministry of Health and the government in deciding that that was no longer needed. I'd like to know how that you come about that. Why is that? When we look at mental health, I look at it this way: mental health has taken more lives on PEI since COVID started. We have no deaths due to COVID, right? But how many deaths do we have because of COVID?
0.
No, but you know what I mean? But like, I'm, you know what I mean? Like we were both saying, like, I mean, I know of at least 4 or 5 individuals based on, 1 degree of separation that are suicidal, that have no support. There's nowhere that they can get help.
Oh, because of, yeah.
Because I'm just saying because of COVID. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm saying because of the actual...
The effects of COVID, right?
Yeah, collateral.
Yeah.
I was being coy, but the point being is that we have no deaths because of COVID, but how many do we have because of COVID?
Yeah, and how many will there be? Like, it's just like you're saying, this is going to be years.
I look at the fact that I honestly think that the amount of, not only that, but if you look at anything, like, anybody that's looking to change their ways, it takes 21 days to create a habit. It takes 3 months, well, we've been now psychologically, there's a psychosis happening, right? If you've been watching the news every day and you've been sort of living your life based on the way that the government is telling you to live,
yeah,
you're changed.
Yeah.
You're changed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, let's not even talk about the virus. Let's just talk about the implementation of safeguards that the government believes are necessary for a virus that has killed only elderly people, right? That they're the ones that have really taken the brunt of it.
Yeah.
And the ones who have died otherwise had pre-existing morbidities. So when I look at our life prior to March of last year, that was the same way we dealt with everything. But with this time, we decided to stop the world on a dime.
Yeah.
And tell everybody to stay home.
Yeah.
You're healthy, stay home. Don't go outside. Don't go eat. Don't go to the gym. Stay healthy.
Shuttle the businesses down. Yeah.
So how does that affect somebody mentally? When all of a sudden your livelihood, because you're in the restaurant industry, you've been told that you cannot open up, and yet you have bills to pay. The landlord's still calling. What kind of anxiety, stress, right? So I put myself in my state 15 years ago, and I go, wow.
Yeah.
So all the people that have done everything right, that have no problems in their life, they've been, checking all the boxes. Those are the people now that we have to be worried about. Not the people that are like I was, and I was emotionally mature to deal with the situation, or people that had childhood traumas that were using drugs and alcohol to deal with it and went down a certain path. Like, to me, those people, we know there's issues. We know these people can't explain. You know what I mean? Like, all of a sudden they're going into a state where I think that they're going to be very similar to where my headspace was 15 years ago. Where they're
initial shock, there's just out of nowhere.
Well, like I said, when all of a sudden, so lose the business. Well, he's been drinking for the last 8 months because that's been happening. There's been some physical abuse, so he's going to lose his wife. He's going to lose his kids. He's losing his job.
You know, and then all of a sudden, like, he lost his family. He's in a single apartment by himself, and then he's isolated and doesn't have his job. Like, everything, his whole life is completely...
So that's not one trauma, right?
Yeah.
It's a series of events, which, like I'm saying, I could relate to exactly what we just described there.
Yeah.
Right? Where all of a sudden, okay, 3 months down the road, he's living in that one-bedroom apartment. He's drinking a fifth of bourbon every day. He's, and how many people do you think, they say that a third of the restaurants in Canada are going to be closed. You know what I mean? Like, all the major centers are now Montreal, Toronto, Calgary, Winnipeg, all the major communities are closed. So a third of the restaurants closed. Do you know how many people are employed by the restaurant and sing concerts, plays? Mm-hmm. These are all people that, and they're only that, but these are social creatures. They enjoy going to work to socialize with somebody.
Exactly.
And now they're not getting that.
Yeah.
Now they're not paying their rent.
Yeah.
So that's where my head goes. And that's where this one wheel is spinning going, and what are we doing? What is society doing about that? What's going on? Nothing. Mm-hmm. Nobody's doing a thing about it. Tell me, have you heard of any organizations, any major organizations coming in to pick up the slack for the mental health? Nobody.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I love what you're doing, man. And that's like, that was a whole, like what you said earlier about, like, you want to grow your channel eventually, where you create content and grow your channel to get the most eyes on it, just to help the most people. And that's 100% why I made this. Yeah. So that's why.
Well, that's I love what you're doing. Love what you're doing.
And that's why, like, I love what you're saying, because it's just, just what you're saying. We can protest the government all we want, but we all know it's a slow moving machine that's just not efficiently ran, and it is what it is until we. What can you do? I think if more people, if this inspires like one other person or like another person to do the same thing, it's like we just need to take it in our own hands. Like, how can we help? How can we help them?
Well, like we said when we got on the phone, like, you know, like you said, what can I do? Mm-hmm. And then you figure, well, I can tell my story and use my platform to hear other stories, and hopefully that, like you said, will help one other person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if it does, it's worth it. Like if any of these help one person, then it's worth it to me.
For me, if like the big thing for me, and the reason why I'm trying to take it to this upper level, is because I believe that people just need a smile every day.
Yeah.
So I'm looking to try and, you know, I'm hoping that I can get myself back to that state of mind where I was able to do that. So it's also a challenge for me to get into that side of the brain and get those creative juices flowing. But
comedy brain.
Yeah. You know what I mean? To get back into, you know, a place where I loved it, because when I got a smile on somebody's face, I got the rush. You know what I mean? I'd rather be addicted to that than sugar. You know what I mean? Which is also, you know, but the point being is I love that feeling. You know, so that's why I was a class clown. That's why in the dressing room when I played hockey when I was younger, you know, when somebody gets hurt, when something's going on, I try to divert from the pain and try to put that smile on your face. So if I can get to that level and create that basic foundation, then hopefully the goal is you're going to want to know, you know, what's the organization behind it. And that's where you're going to hopefully come from the All for Smiles into Salts of the Earth, Islanders Helping Islanders. You'll see the Prince Edward Island Sea Salt Company. You'll see a couple of the other brands we're creating, you know. And the goal is that everything, once you come from that All for Smiles into this world, everything that we're creating there is 40% of the retail is going back right off the bat, right? Like, I mean, some of the events here, it's going to be based on the costs and stuff like that. But online, whatever that price is, that retail component, that 40% is going back into the community, and you're going to see specific projects. Some items if you buy it, you're going to know it's going specifically to that, right? Mm-hmm. That's what our goal is, right?
And that's just like it's just what needs to happen. Yeah. It's as simple as that.
I think action. You know, like I'm a believer. Like I said, myself and Melissa just did a video. Mm-hmm. No idea what let's just do it.
Yeah.
Know? And then we started. And then as we, you know, once it's done, then now we're creating the foundation, right? So need to get a lawyer involved, need to get the paperwork. So all that's being done, right? So our goal is now that something that was going to be just a 30-day campaign is now turning into an entity itself, putting a board of directors together, and then our goal is to build these businesses that are just going to fund that organization and have them, you know, pushing back and forth, is trying to go out to that world. I mean, when we're pushing a product to 8 billion people, I guess there's like 2 billion people on the internet or whatever, but the point is that we have a global audience that might want the products that we're pushing out, right? Mm-hmm. So we're not just focused on trying to sell into 144,000 populace. You know, right now our campaign is we're pushing it across Canada. Once we figure out logistics to be able to go globally, and it, you know, it all makes it, then wherever you want this being shipped, we're going to get it to you. And at the same time, talking to the community about ideas where we can, you know, bring intellectual capital and the intellectual property together to generate more money and more businesses, right? Right. But at the end of the day, I look at it, it's not that complicated. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I can generate a business where that 40% is going directly to the programming, and on that 60% side, I'm able to pay the staff, take care of all the operations, make sure the bills are paid, the electricity stays on. That's a pretty good game plan. It's called running a business, right? Where most charities and nonprofit organizations are, hey, would you mind donating $10? Would you mind donating, or, you know, putting on these events? Where I'm all about doing that as well, but I want to give you some value with that. Buy the salt, that money goes to the programming, and you get something of value out of it, right?
Yeah, and you can probably get farther that way.
Well, I look at it this way: if you bought the salt, then maybe you'll buy, you know, some of the spices we're going to come up with, or some of this, or whatever, right? Some of the other products. Like as we grow and as the word gets out that we're trying to just reinvent, and this, not even reinvent it. It's basically taking a whole bunch of different ideas, putting them into, you know, a vat and stirring it and churning them out, right? We're not reinventing anything here. This is what other organizations are doing it. We're just doing it with salt, and we're trying to do it where everything is coming from a hub. So it doesn't matter what we do, you're going to know about everything that we're doing. You know what I mean?
I think it's awesome too that you come from a business background. And like it's cool that you made the shift, but having that knowledge is just like that's probably something that's missing in the not-for-profit.
Well, that came down to me being literally 19 years old doing stuff back in my hometown with the boys
Boys and girls.
Well, it was Big Brothers, which is now I guess they joined them together. It was Big Brothers of Sudbury, and it was two great women that had their children go through the organization, but they had no business acumen whatsoever. And it was just very frustrating because here I am volunteering my time and looking to try and be productive and see value out of it, where there was no process. Like these were great women, and they were passionate about it because of what it did for the kids. But they're running and they're in charge of books, and when you saw the lack of understanding, and back then I knew nothing really about business, and not to say that I'm good with numbers, but we're going to bring the intellectual capital in that's going to make sure that everything's running appropriately, meaning a CFO, you know what I mean, that makes sure that, and everything's going to be done properly, right? But we're doing it as a business. We're doing it to create profits. We're doing it to be sustainable. We're not doing it just because people need help. That's the ultimate goal, is to get that revenue to do that. But if we don't run the business, like, it comes down to, if you don't take care of you, how are you going to be how are you going to be of service to your family, your girlfriend, your friends, right? The same thing is with this business. When I see nonprofit and charity organizations that are having trouble and all that are just constantly going to the trough, meaning the same community trying to ask for money, comes a point where you got to take that on yourself. How do we generate the revenue we need to put together the proper programming for our community? Maybe you try to create a business aspect to that organization.
I think the important part too, you mentioned earlier, was just what you do with that money too.
Yeah.
And that's like another good like business sense of like, how do we make the most out of this money that we're getting too?
Yeah.
Like, how can we put it in directly into what we want to put it into?
And not only that, but that's why I'm looking at the fact that my biggest thing is to try and get this Islanders Helping Islanders page. The goal is like over the course of the next 3 to 4 months to just blow it up where we have 30, 40,000 people liking the page, hopefully the majority of them from the island, and then putting out surveys. What do you see that's missing? What's necessary? And be able to extrapolate that data, right? Right now, I think there's a lot of data in it, but I look at the fact that when the government is cutting back and not putting money into mental health, and we know that there's a need for at least $1 million in potential more revenue being put into it, and we don't have the services that, when a guy has to overdose to get mental health services.
It's ridiculous.
That blew me away. When I read that in the paper, like I don't read the paper, like a friend of mine sent it to me. I think it was Melissa that sent it to me. Said, "Can you imagine that?" I go, "Wow." Wow. He's got to OD to get the help that it should be readily available, by a therapist or something, I don't know, like the system is broken. And there's only one way to change that, is by, either reinventing the system, which that's what these protests are going to try and do, or start a new system, basically start it where, what do we need? Okay, we need money, then we're going to assess it, and then we need to make more money to just keep building out whatever the process is that we need to build out. I'm not directly looking to compete with the government, but I'm not going to allow the government to continue doing what they're doing when we know that people are not getting the services that they need. And we're talking basic.
You're filling the gaps. It's just what is needed.
Yeah.
How do I save lives?
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I'm not saying that I know that, but I'm a headhunter. I find people jobs, or I find intellectual capital for companies, right? Yeah. So I'm not going to say that I'm going to do it, but I'm going to find the person that knows how to do it, get what we need, and then we're going to assess it, and then put the best possible sustainable solution in play for the community that we live in.
Right.
How that plays out, well, we're doing these campaigns, looking to raise money. If we can leverage that with government funding, great. If not, doesn't matter. The goal is to just build a multi-million-dollar entity and to change lives in the process, and to be able to create a sustainable program that, literally fills every gap.
Right.
With money, and that's the sad thing, but with money, you should be able to fill those gaps.
Yeah, 100%. That's what it comes down to, right? It's all, the whole talk about the government is funding. Yeah. That's all funding.
Yeah.
Seems like a good time to end it, man. I just want to say thanks so much for coming on. Thanks for reaching out.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
And I love what you're doing here. And check out Prince Edward Island salts, sea salts.
Thank you very much. Cheers, man. Appreciate it.